This presentation is an overview of the 5 stages of test development, namely test conceptualization, test construction, test tryout, item analysis, and test revision. So, you are now planning to create your psychological test. You want to measure spiritual health, but there are overwhelming and oftentimes contrasting information about spirituality and health. So where do you begin? Stage 1 is test conceptualization. It begins with asking relevant questions. In Cohen-Swerdlich's chapter, the 14 questions may apply to you or just several of it. In the case of measuring spiritual health, or SH, you may first ask, what content will the test cover? In this case, there are several factors that comprise SH, and these are personal, communal, transcendental, and environmental well-being. You may now predict that your construct is multidimensional, which yield 4 subscores and 1 overall score. You may also ask whether there is or there is no need for this test. With the help of literature search, many tests are already created in measuring the level of spirituality, but few tests about spiritual well-being or spiritual health. Therefore, there is a need to develop a test for spiritual health. You may also move on to ask other relevant questions which are tremendously important in conceptualizing your test. Do remember that the best step for knowing more about your construct is through pilot work. That is, doing literature review, asking experts and other individuals familiar with the construct. Stage 2 is test construction. In this stage, you plan for your scaling, or setting rules for assigning numbers in your measure. One of the most important considerations is your scaling method. The most common method in psychology is using Likert scale. That is, you describe each response according to its intensity and assign a specific number to each intensity. In your SH tests, you may assign a response rating of 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, which correspond to very low, low, moderate, high, and very high. You will instruct the test taker to rate a specific item in terms of how it reflects her present feeling. For example, there is an item about inner peace. The test taker may say it highly reflects how she feels at the moment. So, her response rating is 5. Another task for this stage is writing your pool of items. In this task, you have to write twice as much of the items you plan in the final version. For example, if you plan a 50-item final version, then your pool of items should be at least 100 items. This is so because you need to consider that throughout the process, you will be eliminating items. The third stage is test tryout. You gather participants to try your draft test. There are several rules of thumb for the number of test takers for the tryout stage. One suggestion is that there should be between 5 to 10 test takers per item. This means if you have 20 items, then you may have to gather 100 or 200 test takers for your initial test tryout. Another suggestion is that for each factor, you gather at least 50 test takers. Hence, if your test provides just one score, or unidimensional, then you may gather 50 participants. If 2 scores, then gather 100 participants, and so on. Item analysis is the 4th stage. After getting data from the test tryout, you need to analyze it by looking into several item characteristics, like item endorsement index, reliability index, validity index, and discrimination index. All these indices may not apply to your SH test, but you just have to make sure that you compute for validity and reliability indices. Item difficulty or endorsement index is the proportion of the total number of test takers who answered the item correctly or who endorsed the item. Item reliability index refers to the internal consistency of the test. You may do reliability index through exploratory factor analysis, confirmatory factor analysis, or inter-item consistency, such as Cronbach's alpha. Item validity index indicates whether the items measure what it aims or purports to measure. Item discrimination index indicates how adequately an item separates or discriminates between high scorers or low scorers on the entire test. It is a measure of the difference between the proportion of high scorers answering an item correctly or endorsing the item and the proportion of low scorers answering the item correctly or endorsing the item. Stage 5 is test revision. Based on the results and experience in previous stages, your SH items may be reduced and others rewritten. For those existing tests, they are regularly revised in response to needed improvements due to experiences and insights in using the test. You have to take note that your test is an ongoing draft. It may go through the 5 stages of test development again at any point in time when needed. In summary, the 5 stages of test development are test conceptualization, test construction, test tryout, item analysis, and test revision. There are tasks you need to accomplish in each stage. You may also have to consider 2 theories in test development: classical test theory and item response theory. CTT is the traditional theory that we usually refer to in most, if not all, the tests. In practical terms, CTT assumes that the more items there are in a test, the less random error will be associated with the total score. Hence, there are more valid and reliable but relatively long standardized tests. IRT, on the other hand, assumes that the scale is unidimensional, that is, it measures only one trait or attribute, and that at any given level of the trait, the probability of endorsing one item is unrelated to the probability of endorsing any other item, a property called local independence. Hence, with the independence of items, a relatively short test can be achieved. Nowadays, revision of standardized tests employ IRT. However, with the complex method and computation of IRT, most are still employing CTT in test construction. It is also ideal to be familiar with how CTT works and then progress to IRT. So there you go. Enjoy learning.